and today we are speaking with the Australian street photographer Adrian Whear, a self-taught, self-described amateur photographer. Adrian's work is characterized by keen observation, quiet humor, and an instinct for ambiguity. His photographs of strangers reveal a rare balance of wit, empathy, and humanity. Beyond photography, Adrian has a distinguished career in higher education, specializing in research infrastructure, laboratory operations, and technical services. He's held senior leadership roles at Monash University in Melbourne, where he's worked with multidisciplinary teams supporting world-class research. Now it's time to invite Adrian to join us.
Hey Cindy, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. I'm getting well practiced at this. I know what I'm doing now.
I know. It's not our fault.
No.
Having some difficulties with the software, with
I just assumed it was me.
Yeah, no, it was us in Europe. So sorry that it kept sending you off the platform.
All good. I got
Anyway,
there.
here we
lucky.
go. Fingers crossed, as you
Yep.
said before. Third time we've got it. Special. Okay, now, Adrian, to introduce yourselves to people who may not know your work, can you please describe what you shoot in your own words?
Yeah, look, I shoot, I think I shoot documentary style photography, probably in the genres that are more classically considered around travel and street photography.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I think it's more documentary. Yeah, they're all labels. It's candid shooting in public places is what I do.
Yeah. Now, can you tell us how you started with photography?
Yeah, sure. Look, it's a longer story, but I'll sort of cut it through to short. There's sort of the longer term one is my wife has always been into photography, so I've been exposed to it for 35 or so years that we've been together. Mm-hmm. Most of that time I was the donkey carrying her gear. Okay. Then fast forward many years, I travelled on my own to Morocco, and she was very jealous, and she said the deal was I had to take her camera, to take some basic shots because she wanted to see some things. And I did that, and I worked out within that my wife enjoys photographing landscape, seascape, wildlife, which in Australia is there. Okay. I love being out in it, but it never stimulated me from that point of view. I worked out in Morocco. I like photographing people and life, and that sort of started something from there. Next step forward from that is I'm a cyclist as well. So back home in Melbourne, not long after I got back, I was hit by a car. I'm still here talking to you, so it's okay. Yeah. And I started just to fill in the time because I couldn't ride for a while. I grabbed the camera and started walking the streets of Melbourne, and I started working out that the city I lived in all my life, I started seeing it in an entirely different light. I started walking in a different way, seeing it, and I just fell in love and discovered the soul of the city that I grew up in. It took me 40 years of my life to actually start seeing it that way, and
it's interesting.
I love it.
Yeah. Now, I find your work was actually quite graphic initially before you started doing much more documentary photography. So sort of what led you from one to the next? Just your international travel?
Yeah, I think the travel led there. I think when I was more shooting around Melbourne and remembering that while I've been exposed to photography, I hadn't done it myself up till, I picked it up 10 years ago or so. So, light and shadow and shape and geometry and colour attracted me initially. And it's like, oh, wow, I can make a silhouette by doing this. So it's like this amazing revelation initially. And I loved how those shots looked, the artistic side of them and all that there. But as I started going through, and I've always been into travel, I started seeing and wanting more out of the photographs, and started
Yeah.
really wanting to capturing some story in that, and some people, some authenticity and all that. I think those graphic shots are like a bit of candy. They're a good sugar hit, but
Yeah.
they're authentic in that they're not set up, but
Yeah.
they're really empty. Apart from that, they're soulless in
Yeah.
many ways. Where I wanted started getting a bit more meat on the bones, and which
No,
fits with
no, I
my
hear you.
travel.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. I'm going to show a couple of your images. So
Sure.
this is the shot, I believe, from Morocco, is it not?
Correct. I took that in Casablanca, Morocco, and at that stage I'd never heard of street photography as a genre. I just saw this mural on the wall and thought, oh, that's a nice mural. I'll take a photo for my wife. And I noticed this woman walking past, and I
Yeah.
quickly matched it to the mural, and I took a shot of it. Never thought about it, so I got back home and then was looking at the photos that I'd taken in Morocco. And this was all in P mode. I had no idea really what I was doing.
Uh-huh.
And I saw that image when I got back home, and I remember I'd
So
forgotten
strong.
about it, and I went,
Yeah.
"Wow!"
I know
And I
that
like to
mirror
think,
image of the woman
yeah,
in blue and the woman,
it
the
is, but it's
mural.
also
Yeah.
more than just a
Doppelganger.
mirror image of that. The
Yeah.
match, I see a story in it, because the woman
Okay.
who's walking past in blue is upright and she's walking like strong. The
Yeah,
woman
true.
in the mural, her back is broken. She's bent. She's
Mm-hmm.
got the cane. She's got a load on the back. And I see a woman's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
burden and all that there, the hard life she's had, carrying that burden, supporting her family or supporting those people in that around her, and the load she's had to carry. And that's what I see in that
Mm-hmm.
story. And that
Yeah.
fascinated me, that
Yeah. It's a
storytelling.
metaphor. Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
not just the coincidence, but the
Mm-hmm.
storytelling within that as well. I actually like it better than if there was a woman who was on a cane, back broken, matching that. I think that would have been good in coincidence, but less interesting in story.
Okay. I agree with you. Here is an image of yours, which is much more graphic.
Yeah. So that's one of the earlier ones I took in Melbourne.
Uh-huh.
So it's quite an old image now.
Uh-huh.
And I suppose the story behind that image is that's at a conference centre in Melbourne. And I was at a conference for work.
Mm-hmm.
And on the lunch break, I was just walking around and I saw this scene and I went, wow, this could make a really good photograph. So a few days later, with my camera in tow, I went back there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just up there shooting it. And I like the idea of, again, it's obviously visually very strong. It impacts straight away. But I like the movement of colour through to black and white in that sort
Absolutely.
of single image. I think that works well. And then I got I can't remember how long now, it's a while ago, but I was probably up there for 20, 25 minutes shooting that scene with various people. And
Yeah.
I really like that one. It lined up well. You've got the people talking. I love the high heel shoe with the shadow of the high heel shoe. And then outside
Show
you've
it
got,
again. Yeah.
so you've got the two people. I like the high heel shoe. I love the shadow of that.
Yes.
She got her reflection in the window. And then you've got a couple bit of activity outside. So I was getting activity in both areas I was trying to get. And
multiple depths and layers.
some depth and all that there. It's less in the storytelling as such and all that there, but a more complex image than just waiting for one person to go through it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Now another graphic, but in a different mode, image of yours.
Yeah,
Where was this?
that image, in many ways, there's probably two key images on my journey. And the first one was that the Moroccan image of the women that you showed first. And this is probably the next one, because this is probably the first image I captured in Melbourne that I went, oh, wow, I can actually capture interesting, or for want of a better word, cool images in Melbourne. You're sort of biased. I said I grew up in this city. I thought, Melbourne's a great place to live, but it's boring for photography in comparison to Vietnam or India or places in Europe that I traveled. I went, it's not going to get interesting images here. And when I started walking around, it was more to fill in time. And I saw that scene and captured that. And I went, no, you're closing your mind to it. It actually is us as the photographer the images are there. We're going to find them. And that's what that taught me.
Exactly. We are so used to it, we're inoculated against our own cities. So that's why it's so fascinating to go elsewhere to see something different and unknown. And that's a kind of prejudice against our own cities.
It is. But
So,
that image stimulated my whole no, it's not just changed my view of my city, but stimulated the whole way to see my city.
Yeah, absolutely.
What it could offer.
You had talked about sort of walking the streets, as you were saying, and you actually described Melbourne as kind of gritty and postmodern and some of the, Victorian elements, etc. You have an image that really looks quite noir to me.
Yeah, it feels to me like it's 1930s or so Melbourne. It's an entrance to a subway station here in Melbourne. Got graffiti all around it. It's a small lane, so there's big entrances to this station, literally like 300-400 metres away. Flinders Street Station this is, and there's really big, grandiose entrances, heritage listed building to go in, and this is a back way into that same station. And in that back way, we've got, there's graffiti, there's a lot of posters up advertising gigs and all that around. And I just like the grunge feel of it in this small lane. And I was there in the evening and just got the right character. And I was there at the right time when this character went through. The suit, it just feels a bit like, I don't know, businessman. I think it feels like a spy. It could be
that
going
noir
there.
aesthetic, yeah.
Yeah, I think it feels like, to me, Perry Mason, that type of noir detective and all that there. I've just been watching Spider Noir, actually, so in that one there on it. And, yeah, again, it's a very graphic shot, but it's also very Melbourne at the same time, which is what I like with that there. And I like if you look on top of the pillar there, above it is the words low life, and I think that sort of works nicely in with what's going in there with it as well. So, yeah, and that's there's been a lot of renovations since I took that shot. So while that entrance is still there, it looks a bit different to what that is now as well. So one of the things I do like, and I think a lot of us like around with street photography, is that even those graphic images are still documenting those scenes, those backgrounds, which change. And then you've got to, so while it's a graphic image, you're still documenting something which is disappearing over time.
Of course.
So, So I think it captures that as well. So again, it's about an 8-9-year-old image now, but it is,
well, the city continues to morph, etc. So you captured something. Did you tell me that was being looked at for?
The funny background story. So going forward, I don't know, 2 or 3 years after I took that image, I was contacted by a local advertising agency who had a client that was interested in purchasing the rights to that image.
Okay.
And again, to cut a long story a bit shorter, I inquired who the client was because they wanted the quote from me, and it worked out the client was ASIO. They come back, and ASIO is the Australian Secret Intelligence Organisation, so the equivalent of like the CIA. And all that there, who wanted that image. So I'm sure they'd done a very comprehensive background check on me before approached me for it. Yeah. So they were having basically an exhibition going around Australia, some old surveillance photos from the 1960s that ASIO had taken. Had been, enough time had passed and they've been released under Freedom of Information. And so there was going to be a photographic exhibition go around Australia, and they wanted that to be the hero image for the exhibition. But
the low life.
Yes, the low life and the guy that looks like a spy.
Low life.
But unfortunately, I've sort of fell through. Timing is everything, and COVID happened not long after it, and so it didn't work through. The whole exhibition got cancelled. But, it makes a good story.
It really does. Why didn't they revive having that show after COVID? What a shame.
So... that's okay. It is what it is. It's still nice that they consider that, and I'm sure there's a big dossier on me somewhere in the ASIO files there.
Yeah, exactly. There's a dossier hanging
for the right reasons, hopefully, not the wrong reasons.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a good story. Here's another image. Could you tell me about this, please?
Yeah, this is another one I captured in Melbourne, and I feel in some ways it pairs with the previous image that you just showed me in my mind. So the face in the sky per se is a stencil on a pane of glass, and everything else we're seeing is a reflection on that pane of glass. So I basically shot that at that time. I really wasn't sure what type of subject or character I wanted coming through. But when that person, the man walked through with the hat, I loved it because for me, the Australian or Melbourne equivalent of like Bonnie and Clyde is Squizzy Taylor. And he was like a well-known Melbourne gangster in like the early 1900s. And for me, that, you know, the burlesque lips and the hat and that old church steeple in the background that's reflected there near him, that's still in silhouette as well, to me represents that sort of almost that gangster feel time of Melbourne. And then you've got the new Melbourne on the right starting to encroach with the skyscrapers and all that. So it's sort of like a journey through Melbourne in time. That's how I see the image.
It also has that noir feeling with that
It does,
fedora. Yeah. Okay. Really, really interesting. So let me think.
And those stencils of glass are unfortunately gone now as well. So back to capturing moments and scenes that it's a graphic image, but it's also documenting something which is no longer there.
Now, another image of yours, again, another street image. Is this in Melbourne as well?
This is in Melbourne as well, and these posters were up at that period of time. And I think at that stage, a number of Melbourne street photographers had gone and taken similar shots there. It obviously leads itself to obviously what shot you would take with that.
Sure.
One of the things people say, how long did you wait for that image? Well, in 15 minutes, I got about 4 people on the phones. It's more challenging not to get someone on the phone than it is to get someone on the phone. And initially, I got an image of a person walking the other way on the phone, and I quite liked the visual tension that added. But then I saw this woman coming, and I waited, and I was able to capture her as well. And that red dress, it just pops against that dark, shadowy background, and that's the one I just had to go for. And to me, it's that story of what I see there is it's almost like there's connections because they're all the same. But to me, I call it disconnected because they're all on the phone. They're all connected. They're actually all disconnected from each other at the same time. So I think it's telling that story of what the phones are through putting everyone on a phone to show our disconnections in society.
Quite. So when you go about fishing, why don't you explain that technique to us and tell us about how long you will, like you said, 15 minutes waiting in that particular location. So
fishing, I think a lot of us that done street photography know it. It's, again, you find a scene or a background that we really quite like, and then you're hoping, you're sort of formulating in your mind what you might want, you know, you think will be the good subject that will finish that off. In that one there, I wasn't saying the subject is a woman in a red dress. I'm going, I want somebody on their phone, you know, and obviously some then work better than others. And then you just wait to either how long that your patience lasts for, the light moves on, you know, some of that light can move pretty quickly. So depending on, again, what else it is with it. How long, like, I don't know, my attention span's about 10, 15, unless things are happening. Like if I'm getting people and I'm shooting, you lose track of time. But if I'm just waiting and nothing's happening and I'm going, you know, then you go, time to come back another day. The advantage is if you're fishing in your own city, you can do it again.
Sure.
You get multiple opportunities to go. When you're travelling, you get one opportunity, and 15 minutes travelling is not happening. You've probably got 5 minutes, you know, in the respect that I'm travelling with my wife, and you know, she wants to go on, we want to go on and do things. And photography is also, again, when I'm travelling, it's a great bonus. But it's not the reason. You still you want to do things.
Yeah, agreed. How long did it take before you feel like you've got your own style rather than just taking pictures, in your opinion?
Oh, wow. I think I'm still developing that style, but probably a few years. I think I almost have, in some ways, I think I have two styles, and I think I have a style for Melbourne and I have a style when I travel. And I think that they sort of go, like in Melbourne, I shoot a bit more disconnected from a scene. The idea of personal space, people seem to be a bit more aware and out of it.
Yeah.
And all that there and that with it. Where I travel a lot, particularly to Asia. One, I love the culture. I love the food. Yes. Also from Australia, it's a a bit more accessible than
Close, yeah.
Europe's and America and all that there.
Sure.
And so personal space is very different in Asia. The scenes
Yeah.
around you are very
Yeah.
different in Asia.
Yeah.
How it stimulates me, and that is very different in that as well. So I think
Okay.
that my style in some ways shifts between those
Shifts.
two areas
Sure.
and all that there
Culturally,
with them.
that's
So
what I'm
when I go
saying.
to Asia,
Yeah.
I almost start shooting
Culturally,
entirely differently, just automatically, than when I come back home. Yeah, and
sure.
a lot of that's probably moving in closer. I probably shoot in a lot closer to scenes and to people when I'm traveling than I tend to
Amazing.
do
Okay.
in Australia. I think Australia, I probably shoot more of those graphic images
Okay.
locally, and I think I
Yes.
shoot more of the live people images and all that there
Yes.
culturally. But again, like when I'm overseas, that's what I'm traveling for. That's what I'm looking for, whether I got a camera in hand or not. That's
Okay.
what I'm want to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where back home, I've captured some good images, which I think back home here in Australia, which are
I'm
those
sorry.
life and people
Sure.
images and that with it. But as I said, I think the difference is my style is more disconnection locally and much more connected or within a scene when I
Yeah.
travel.
I think you nailed it when you said you carry your personal space with you. So it's
Yeah,
different when you're at home in Australia and you have to respect certain distances and parameters, perhaps
yeah.
written or unwritten. And in Asia, it's very crowded. So it's a whole different kind of body space and people are, touching, bumping right up to you,
Yeah.
etc. It's just different. So,
I
yeah.
think when we travel, we often take that personal space with us. And one of the
Yes.
things that I learned over time traveling is that you got to, if you can drop that idea of personal space and adapt to what the personal space of the country you're
Right.
traveling, it opens
Yeah.
up opportunities here. Now, of course,
Yes.
some people locally in Melbourne will get in really close and shoot. It's just something that I'm not as comfortable with in that as well. So there's no right or wrong. It's where you're
Okay.
comfortable doing.
Okay. Yeah. Now
And that leads to your style. Back to
you
the
have,
starting question. Yeah,
uh-huh.
sorry, Cindy. Go.
No, I was going
Sorry.
to bring up another photo. So
Sure.
can you tell us about that, please? You shot that where? Is that local?
That's in Australia, so it's not in Melbourne. It's in Broome, which is northwest West Australia.
Uh-huh.
So it's at Cable Beach, which is a very well famous beach in Australia. Huge, long beach, and bizarrely, it's been I don't know how long,
Hmm.
decades now. There's camels on the beach, just in, camel rides. So there's a long string of camels and people ride them at sunset and get their photos and all that there with them. So a
Uh-huh.
classic photo in Australia is this, line of camels silhouetted on the beach with
Uh-huh.
the sunset and the sea in the background. Quite unique. You don't see that many
Yeah.
places in the world like
Uh,
that. So my wife and I went there recently. I seen about 4 years ago. It's just after COVID when we didn't
mhm.
want to, still weren't comfortable traveling out of Australia yet. So we went up there. We hadn't been, but I didn't want to capture the usual just silhouette of camels. So I
Mhm.
challenged myself to see if I could come up with something a bit different. And this is what I did. So again, I obviously got in a lot closer and low,
Yeah.
and I was trying to shoot between the camel legs, trying to get a bit of that sunset in. And this was moving. So I'm just basically moving of the camels the whole time, running, going, shooting a bit, running, moving. And I saw, I'm always looking at the background of the water. What's there? The kids, are there people and all that there? Because I wanted to get things
Yeah.
framed between the legs. And I saw these kids there, so I sort of run ahead to where they were, then waited for the
Mhm.
camels to come along and was able to capture them between the legs. So that was really nice. That's exactly
Yeah.
what I was after. But the bonus that I haven't noticed, because it was all really quickly, was the boats out on the water and getting that boat between the legs. And
What
I like
timing?
that connection because camels are known as the ships of the desert. And I sort of like we've got ships on the sea, camels on the
Ah,
beach, ships on the
that's nice.
beach. So I sort of like that connection and that going through. So that was a nice bit of serendipity.
Very. Ah, hang on. Before.
It's funny, until I mentioned camels, a lot of people think that
Yeah. I
I've
would have
shot
thought
through the legs of
you
a
were in.
dog.
Yeah. Oh, a dog. Oh no, I just
Uh,
thought you were in Asia somewhere. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Or yeah.
Well,
Travel.
maybe in Asia that people think, but a lot of people think it's a dog and all that there, which I think
Okay.
that's a more natural place to go. Camels, especially, even though camels are, I think Australia has the largest population of camel in the world, if I'm correct, wild camels.
Oh,
Yeah, it's some bizarre fact.
it's bizarre. Yeah, really long legs if it was a dog. But
Yeah,
anyway, so you're down on your knees. No, you're down on the ground and you're trying to follow the movement of the camel.
yeah.
Okay. Very good. This is a beautiful image in black and white.
Oh yeah,
Can you tell us about that?
it's one of my favourite images actually. So that's taken at Anzac Day. So Anzac Day is Australian Day where we honour and remember our wartime dead and
Okay.
participants and honour them. So
Yes.
starts off in the morning with remembrance and all that there, and then it moves in towards parades as the day goes along. And I tend to go to it each year. Again, pay me respects to people who have given their life for the country we are now.
Yes.
And then from there, I photographed the parades, and I saw the navy with the white hats always make good shots in black and white from above.
Yes.
And I've tried it in years gone by, so I already had the idea in mind. But I noticed this woman at the back as part of the Navy, and she was little, like 5 foot, really small. So she was framed nicely against the rest of them when I held the camera up. And I waited there for, I don't know, a few minutes, hoping for her to turn around with my camera held up, going in my head, turn around, turn around. And the parade was just about to start, so I tapped her on the shoulder and actually asked if I could have her image. And she turned around and she allowed me to do so, as you can see. And I think it's actually a much better image than if I just had got a candid snap of her half turning around or something, if that did happen. So it also taught me that there is times that you ask for a portrait if the moment is correct for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what come out of it for me, because I'm really very focused on I want it to be candid, I want it to be candid. And I think that's still the basis of my photography. But there is a time where maybe tapping someone and saying, look, can I grab your photo? Depending on the scene or that, would actually get you a better frame. So it was a good lesson for me out of that image, as well as getting a image I'm very proud of.
A way good frame. She's lovely. She's so serene, beautiful smile, fantastic background. The fact
and I
that
was very
she's small,
fortunate
allowing you to get all the hats behind without, disturb.
Yeah, someone in the Navy actually saw that picture and contacted me, and they were the liaison officer of the Australian Navy, and we were able to work out together who she was. We could see her name, and they put me in contact with her, and I was actually able to give her a couple of prints for her parents and her in-laws, which is a great honour that I could do that for her.
Beautiful, beautiful photograph. Yeah. Now, were you standing, by the way, on some sort of riser? What were you? How did you?
No, just standing on my feet and holding my camera above my head to what my, as much as my arm could stretch or whatever. That was why I had to tap, because my shoulder was about to fall off at the end, because I was holding it there the whole time, just waiting for her to turn. Even occasionally making a silly noise, trying to see if I could get her to turn.
Get her attention, but I don't think it a bit as well composed. It is.
I agree.
So,
and it's the expression on her face that I really like. I think it makes it.
Yeah, makes the image. Now, as your work moves from minimalism to more documentary, etc., do you find those two instincts are in tension, or do they feed each other in your practice?
I think they feed each other and all that there with it. I think everything we do builds up to where you next go and all that there. I don't think that I just drop everything that I've done or what I learned and then start another one. You just keep building on those foundations, building and all that there. I still like to, even when I'm trying to capture the more storytelling people images, I still, where I can, they're still photographic art. I still try to make them as artistic as I can. I shoot low, I use the sky. I try to keep them simple. I like to try and have images where I can, which are reasonably, when I say simple, maybe complex and layering all that, but visually simple, if you know what I mean.
So you can read them more easily.
So you can read them and all that.
And, substance.
So you can see the layers. So I tend to try and shoot and look for those backgrounds, and I often shoot low against. So again, if there's, especially when traveling, when I went to Bangladesh, the first few days I thought I shot really poorly, and part of going, you hear people say this all the time. It's nothing new. It's so chaos and they're so busy. I'm not sure how to shoot and all that there with it. And I sort of did two things around that I tried, and one of them was coming up with stories and all that there and trying to shoot to these themes rather than, so that way I could look through the chaos to try and find themes, and that might help simplify. And the other one was to try and start shooting lower to try and get up against a cleaner background, which is what works for me. And putting those two things together definitely helped me shoot. I'm not saying shoot really well, but it definitely improved how I was shooting.
Yeah, I like that idea of picking the focus as well, and then going out in that really, really, colorful and chaotic environment and finding something specific to anchor you and then continuing to search for that. That's helpful.
I still think that where I developed initially again those graphic scenes, I'm still attracted by that color. I'm still attracted by that shape and that movement and going into it. And then, then when you're overseas, then trying to, that almost brings me in, then finding the stories and that, or finding the scene of the people within that works for me. So they build on each other. I don't forget or, you develop. We all develop as photographers. That's where it comes from. If we stay static, I think we get bored pretty quickly.
But so how much is instinct versus repeatable process at this point for you?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think it's both, isn't it? I think that, you have a process that you go through, and you're always trying to develop that process. You're trying to develop your eye, how you approach a scene, how you're seeing a scene. Maybe you're starting to keep challenging yourself by looking for angles or getting in harder. But at the same thing, there is instinct within that as well. At any moment, if your gut there tells you something, if you feel something, you've got to trust that instinct within it. So you have a process that goes you're in, then at some point instinct will overtake that process at certain times.
Okay,
or lead that process. Or lead that process, maybe more accurately put. And I think that within Asia and all that in particular, that is part of it. Absolutely. There's process and instinct together, and I think that they work well symbiotically rather than one or the other.
Okay. Let me ask you, are you shooting digital? Are you shooting film? Are you shooting both? Or
no, I just shoot digital.
Okay. And
just digital.
So, well, how much gear actually matters to the vision, or vice versa? Is it just a tool? Your equipment's just a tool compared to your vision?
The camera's a tool. I think that most of it's in my head and seeing what's on there, but it's also a tool that you need to understand and be able to know what to use and know what it can do and give you to be able to meet that vision. You need slower shutter speed. Do I want to get more movement? Do I want to freeze movement? Do I want to get motion in that picture? Do I want to blur backgrounds? How much layering or depth and that do I want in that? So you still have to understand what that tool is, but it is just a tool at the end of the day. At the end, you've got to have, it's 95% the creativity's up here. That's the photographer.
Your vision and
your vision, all that there. But the more you understand your tool, the better your vision can be. It gives you more expanded vision is probably the way, the more you understand the tool, what it can do for you.
Absolutely. What are you shooting with?
I shoot with a Canon.
And
mirrorless.
Which one?
Canon mirrorless with R. The first mirrorless that was released, so I probably need an upgrade at some stage soon. It's getting a bit old and got quite a high shutter count these days. And with a 24, I was 2470. I've moved recently to 24-105 SO travel lens. It's a really good travel lens. And I've got a 16 prime with that. I love my 16 prime.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, do you find you're using your prime more when you're in Asia or when you're in, Melbourne shooting? What?
Both. It just depends on the scene. Like I really do like shooting over here. Puddleography is one of my things. When it's a rainy day, I really love going out and shooting those puddles.
Is that what you
puddleography? Said? Yes. Okay. I've done a lot of puddleography in my time.
I see.
And getting that 16 mil and right down onto those puddles can really, I think it just opens that world up and all that there. So I think it makes it look really great because it just converges it all in and works really well in that for me. So, I shoot them both, but again, as we talked before, how I use them is different. I just come back to Uzbekistan recently, and I actually didn't shoot a huge amount 16 in comparison. I was finding that 24 was enough. A few times I was using the 16. It was just getting a bit too wide or distorted at the ends of the frame and all that there. So I don't know. Again, I'm sort of starting to lean more into that 24 range. I was shooting 16 a lot more a couple of years ago, but that's part of our I don't have development. We just move around as we get bored. This works at this particular time, but then the next time you go on, for whatever reason, this one's working for you, how your mind is thinking, how your vision is to shoot. Part of it is, I think, just us continue keeping ourselves stimulated and challenging ourselves in different ways.
Okay. Now, are you mostly shooting in color? I mean, you said color, but or black and white. And are you deciding in post-production that this is really going to present in black and white, like the image of the Navy, the woman?
Yeah. So I shoot raw, and everything I'm shooting is in color. So I don't set it to play. I have at times set my camera to display black and white, so I see it in black and white. But of course, when you download the raw files, you've still got them in color.
Yeah.
But probably, I don't know, about 3/4 of the time when I'm shooting an image, I'm in my head, I'm already knowing if it's a color or black and white image in my head. I'm seeing it that way.
Yeah.
But there's the odd occasion where you get an image, you look at it on the computer and you thought it was a color image and you go, it's just not working for me as much as I thought. And you turn it to black and white and you go, yes, that's it. It takes out some distraction. Sometimes color works for the image and sometimes color is a distraction in the image. And you just need
too complex, too dense.
Have the black and white to remove it. But I don't tend to shoot in series or projects. I just shoot images. I enjoy shooting and all that there. So I'm not in the style. I'm not like everything's got to be color or everything's got to be black and white for me. Whatever works for that individual image is what I will, and that image will end up as being. That one of the sailor in black and white, that was in black and white in my head right from the start when I was there shooting it, holding it up. I was seeing it as black and white, the same as those deep shadows and all that there. Our eyes have such an amazing dynamic range and all that there. And I try to see as the camera would. So I start seeing blacks as black. I try to not see the detail in the shadow. I just see it as a black and all that there to try and get that idea of how I want that image to look. I think that really developed because my initial camera before this was not a mirrorless. So mirrorless, what you get is what you see, where the previous camera is not. So I was trying to see what I wanted to get and then, try to shoot the settings to get that.
Let me ask you a question. You just said you were recently in Uzbekistan, correct?
Correct, yeah, earlier this year.
Is that black and white from Uzbekistan?
That's black and white from Uzbekistan, yes, and it's at a livestock market, and they're getting the cattle out of the back of the trucks, and that was pretty insane. That was happening in front of us, but it was also happening behind us at the same time. 360 degrees of animals around, and so you had to be very careful of where you're walking, not just through the bullshit that they leave on the ground. But also the bulls around you and all that there, My wife did get stepped on by a bull from behind and all that there.
I've experienced that.
And, that's insane, that scene. When they pull and when it eventually decides it's going to come out, it just doesn't come out. It comes out and they've got basically a 200-metre runway in front of that guy, and it just goes for that 200 metres.
Jeez.
I like that one because you've got the resistance. At that stage, it's going, no, I don't want to come out. And you can feel the pulling in that of it. And like I said, eventually, this is a different one. So the shot beforehand of it coming out is not that same scene. It's a different one getting pulled out. But I like it too because that one you're seeing the resistance and the other one when it eventually comes out. But I wouldn't be doing what those guys are because that comes out at speed.
Yeah, no, I pulled that up because of the black and white content, basically, and you're deciding that instead of using color, which you did in one, black and white in the other.
Yeah, I felt that. I know I like the color in the one with just the head out. It helped the cow, the bull, stand out against the background. I thought it worked within, but when we got the whole body of it, I felt then that almost become a distraction, and the simplicity of the black and white actually then worked better with it, especially with like the mud and that getting thrown up in the air. That just popped again much more against the white sky, and there was a cloudy day, so the sky was white either way. And often on cloudy days, again, I'll shoot against that white sky, and then I'll often go black and white because it works better in black and white than in a color image with that white sky.
Yeah, agreed. Are you also in the market here?
Yeah, that's at the same market. So again, just shooting low, trying to capture the animals, but trying to capture the people around it. And
Yes,
that's one of those ones where the rhythm of the scene just, that presented in 2 seconds it was there and gone. I was just fortunate enough that I already had my viewfinder aimed towards it, and I just saw it unfold on my viewfinder in front of me and just clicked at that time, and I was very happy that I got it.
Yeah, I shoot a lot of animals. I do a lot of transhumanist stuff, so I'm drawn to the animals. And having shot a festival recently with a lot of cows, pulling these beautiful carts, I ended up sort of, without even noticing, stepping a little too close to one of the huge cows and catching just a little bit of the hoof with my, oversized running shoes. I didn't even realize I had done that. Oh my God, that thing started bucking like a donkey. Anyhow, let me ask you, so when you have what you think or what you would describe as an ordinary scene, but you are able to show it in an extraordinary way in your practice, do you have a photograph that kind of nails that description that I might have here?
Off the top of my head, that's a challenge. Have you got one?
Okay. Not a problem. Not a problem.
The answer is, I think I'm certain I do, but
for you. Come to
off the top of my head, yes, yeah. So that's in Sri Lanka and Colombo at the there's a market or unloading area for all the markets, and that's one when I was really shooting a lot with my 16 mil. So that was shot at 16 mil. So I was really close as they were unloading the bags. And so he has lifted that bag up to the roof of the truck. It's actually going onto the roof and getting put on there to be, taken away to somewhere else. And I just love the arms, but the detail on the arms, you can see the sinews of his muscle and that along it, and his veins running through as his arms are held out.
Yes.
It's a bitty on that bag. It actually says power on the bag, but we can't read it. I would have liked that to have come across in the image. And then his pink singlet just really works well with his arms and that background. It sort of just works in with it. And but it's just wingspan. I just love that wingspan that comes across.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, if we go more, to your other sort of documentary photography. So you spent 3 weeks, I think, in Bangladesh, you told me?
Correct, yes, in 2019.
Okay, so can you tell us about the scenes that you were shooting there? You can start anywhere you want. Why don't you describe what you were doing there?
Bangladesh, wow, Bangladesh was such a shift for me because that's probably the first time that I'd really shot the documentary people and all that there. Okay. I saw an image, a couple of images. I'd entered a competition in New York, and I was fortunate enough to be runner-up in this competition. Cool. And the image that won the competition was from a Bangladesh photographer of a Bangladesh scene, and I was struck. The image that blew me away. I hadn't seen anything like it, and I was starting to research Bangladesh from that, and I went, I would really like to go here. And so I pretty much, within about 8 months of that, I was in Bangladesh. And
3 weeks notice. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and it was again incredible. Every day I was learning so much in respect of learning. I've never shot this. How am I going to do it? This is what I want to do. How the hell do I do this? And all that and that on it. And also learning. I think the thing it taught me so much is I think that when I was shooting in Melbourne and those graphic scenes beforehand, I was a lot of times aiming for perfection. And I started learning within that, let go of perfection and try and capture. It doesn't matter if there's a blur. It doesn't matter if this is on the edge of the frame or whatever else there. Let those go and just if you can capture that moment as best you can, be happy with that. And, and all that there. And so I started sort of giving, not trying to get a perfect frame and just trying to get the frame, capture what I wanted to in the frame. And if I'd done that, then I had achieved what I wanted to out of it. And I was learning a lot, and I got some good images, I think, and I messed up some images because I was learning. I think I'd do it differently if I was there now. But again, also it challenged me so much emotionally that sometimes my photography struggled because I was emotionally struggling with where I was
The
at and
situation.
what I was seeing and all that there
Okay.
around it. You know, seeing teenage girls breaking bricks between their feet and
Yeah.
bandages over their feet where they've taken
Mm.
hits. And
Yeah.
at the exact same time, back home, my teenage
Mm.
daughter is living her
Her
wonderful
life.
life and all
Yeah.
that there. And just that juxtaposition between the two,
Yeah.
it just
Hard.
emotionally, just there's times where I just found it hard. And I think sometimes that worked for me, photography. And there's times where I just had to go and sit down and put the camera away and connect and sit with them and
Okay.
try and
And
connect and have a human moment with
yeah,
people.
that's your empathy and humanity coming out, which comes out in your photography. So yeah, I hear you. That's hard. I do have an image of yours from the brick factories, which is
Yeah, yeah. So
you
as
could tell
I
us about.
mentioned earlier, one of the ideas I had in Bangladesh was to, on each day when I got to an area, was to think of one or two themes and then to
Okay.
use those themes to help guide my shooting because that,
Yes, as you're
again,
saying.
I found it made it easier for me. And at the brick factories, when I got there, again, I probably walked around for about, again, I didn't time myself, but I'm going to say about 15 minutes, just looking at the scenes, looking what was in front of me, taking it in, starting to process it on an emotional level, starting to process it on an intellectual level, what I was seeing. And I sort of come up with the two themes of there. Women was one of them, and the other one was dust. And so I was
Mhm.
trying to shoot around those themes. And obviously this one with the women, it's, again, her bright clothing, and not just hers,
Yeah.
but all the women there, they're bright, incredible textiles they're wearing against
What a
those bland
contrast.
backgrounds.
Yeah.
Also, the work of carrying bricks on their heads and how they're doing it's brutal manual labor, whether
Hmm.
it's a man, whether it's a woman, and unfortunately also whether it's a child that's doing it. And I decided that the lens of the woman, showing that brutality of the work through a lens of woman, would be more effective than showing those same images through a man, even though it would still come across, but not as impactful. And so I come across this scene where she was having the bricks. They're stacking them up to fire them. It's an outdoor kiln. So after they stack them, they
Mm.
cover them in dirt and then they basically fire them for like 2, 3 days. And then they basically unstack it and take them all out again, put them in the back of trucks.
Ah,
And it's that
okay.
hand coming down, taking the brick, taking the
Yeah.
bricks away. So it's like a helping hand and all that there. And again, back to that
Hmm.
story of the brutality of the work and can someone give them a helping hand? And that's what I saw in that scene and what I tried to capture in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Another metaphor. Yeah, that is tough. Hmm. Oh, yeah, like this.
But it's also visually appealing at the same time. And that's sort of
Yeah,
where I
it
want
is.
me, like I said, the photography to be. And that those
Yeah.
colours work so well. So the
Mm.
women, it wasn't just the story. Visually, they were just much more appealing photographically to me than what the men were wearing. So the
Okay.
combination of the two.
This is also Bangladesh.
That's Bangladesh, yeah. So um, jumping between the trains, wow, it's insane.
Yeah.
Why do they do it? I don't know is the answer. I've got my guesses. Like this was after a religious festival, and this train station on the outskirts of Dhaka was insanely crowded. Like there's only
The
one
capital.
platform, or
Okay.
one central platform with two sides to it, and you couldn't move. It was insanely crowded. So why were they doing that? Is it easier to move around? I suspect that's part of it. Are they showing off to a degree? They do it whether the photographer's there or not, of course, but I've
Mm.
no doubt they're
Okay.
showing off a bit for me as well. And it's only young men are doing it that I
Hmm.
noticed. I think they're the only ones who can probably physically make that jump and only the ones who are stupid enough to make the jump or try the jump.
Exactly. Oh my
They
God.
tried to get me up there, and I was going, no way, no way.
And they tried to get you
But
up there?
they did.
Oh, you
Not the
should have
jump,
gone.
just on
You
the
should
roof of
have
the train.
photographed
Yeah,
from down below.
yeah,
Then it would
it would
have
have been
taken off
interesting,
and
but
you'd have been in trouble.
I don't know how my travel insurance would go if I fall off the roof of a train.
Yeah. That's not for, dudes of our age.
I'm not a young person anymore. I'm not old, but I don't
No
bounce
problem.
anymore.
I'm with you there. That you call the leap of faith, I would assume,
I
correct?
actually do call that the leap of faith.
Because, jeez.
Really.
Okay, you were also there for the second largest Muslim congregation of like pilgrimage of
Yeah.
the Islamic community, and you've got some photographs from that. Can you give us a description? I will show a couple. This is hard to believe. So, what's the festival name?
So it's the Bijwa Ejatima. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And it's annual Islamic Congress held on the
Yes.
outskirts of Dhaka, where basically it goes for 4 days and they discuss the tenets of Islam and
Okay.
argue and all that, discuss the tenets of Islam during that time. So there's a huge tent compound there. And this is taken on Friday. So Friday is the most important day
Holy
in
Day.
the Islamic religion,
Yes.
and the afternoon prayer, the Dur prayer, I'm probably pronouncing that slightly incorrect, is the most
Okay.
important prayer time on that day.
Yes.
And all the mosques are full because there's millions of people that have come into Dhaka for
Yeah.
this 4-day Congress.
Yes.
And so all the mosques are full on that Friday afternoon. So they basically just spill out around this area where the compound is onto
Yes.
the road. So that's a freeway. So like 15 minutes before that photo, there's cars, there's buses, there's horns honking. It's just the normal chaos that you see in many of the big Asian cities. And then the call to prayer comes out and everybody just gets out of a lot of the cars move off the road. Some of the buses stay there. Everyone gets out. The prayer mats go down. It is just spine tingling. You could just feel it through your body. It was an incredible privilege to be able to be there and
Uh-huh.
witness this, and silence then during the prayer. Like, you're in the city of Dhaka. It must be the only time it's ever silent. And, then after the prayer, which I didn't time it, a couple of minutes it goes for, 2-3 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
then they had a 60-minute silence to remember all the Islamic people that had lost their lives in the previous 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then the prayer mats come up and the chaos starts off again. But what's really beautiful during this, and it's not shown in the photo, is that inside the buses are non-Islamic people just patiently sitting there,
Oh,
just
really?
going, it's only a few minutes out of our lives while
Yeah.
this goes through.
Uh-huh.
And then, once it's done, people get back in the bus, people go on, and off they go about to their lives again. So this respect of which it's about respect anywhere. Australia and some of the countries at the moment, I don't want to get into politics, but there's there's these arguments about immigration and that which frustrate me a lot, and it really is. We can see it in any culture and anywhere in the world. It really is just respecting other cultures, respecting other religions, and coexisting. And it was beautiful to not only see the prayer, but see the coexistence and tolerance around people. We can all learn that.
Yeah, we could all learn something from that. Agreed. That shot, there are so many people. It's astounding. It's a sea of people, eye to eye.
And that shot only
As far
shows
as I
that's
can
looking
see.
one way, as far as I can see. But I'm
Uh-huh.
standing on a footbridge over this
Okay.
freeway. So
Yeah.
behind me, as far as I can see, is the
Yeah.
same scene. And to the left of
Incredible.
me
Yeah.
is, again, as far as I can see, is the same scene.
Yeah.
And then to the right of me on that bridge was a whole compound full of tents that have been set up, all with colourful tops, as far as I could see.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just spine-tingling.
How many people come to this festival annually?
Well, I was looking that up again. I was told that praying on the road, there was estimated about 4 million people. That's what I was told.
It's mind-boggling.
And it would have to be men only, because in the Islamic religion, I didn't look down and was trying to take note, is there a woman there? Are they only men? But I'd be surprised if it wasn't only men in that image praying.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where, but there will be somewhere else that would have been designated a zone for women to pray, who would be no doubt praying there.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. It is just incredible. And I think one of the things in Bangladesh, as you can see, the Islamic traditional clothing that they wear is of all colours. There's not a single colour like some. So it just makes it even more visually. There's just colour everywhere.
Beautiful.
This kaleidoscope of colour, and it's just amazing.
It really is. Now, when you are photographing strangers in a culture, not your own, obviously, is there kind of an ethical line you have to be careful of, aware of? What can you tell me?
And It shifts going through, of course, in different cultures and different religions. There's different challenges, like in Islamic culture,
Yeah.
photographing women is definitely more challenging and all that there. But it's also country to country within that, because in Uzbekistan, it wasn't a problem at all.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
It is where, but it's not. I think you can work that out after the first couple of days, because in Uzbekistan, I was talking to women on the street, I was talking to girls on the street, I
Okay.
was talking to men on the street, just having conversations.
Yeah.
I use photography. One of the great things I think with photography and travel is photography allows me a gateway to connecting with people.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
I take a photograph,
Uh-huh.
and if I like the photograph or I think it's an interesting moment, I'll use that photograph to approach the person. Or if I feel something about that person interests me, I use
Yeah.
that image to approach them, and I
Uh-huh.
show them the image. And that's
Yeah.
a gateway. And sometimes, you get, oh, that's nice and all that there.
Yeah, yeah.
But often it leads to 15, 20, half an hour conversation. Sometimes
Conversations.
you end up in a cafe having a coffee. Sometimes you end up in someone's lounge room having some food to eat. And
That's amazing. Yeah.
but it gives us connection. But, in Uzbekistan, I was approaching some of the women and I was having long conversations and that with them about the photos, and English wasn't a problem.
Uh-huh.
Bangladesh, very much more a patriarchal culture in that way. So
Yeah.
the women and all that there, when you're approaching all that, were much
Uh-huh.
more hesitant to do so. So you pick up on that. So then that starts going, okay, I need to be careful of my photography around that as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Being
You,
an
you know,
outsider makes
so
you
you start
change
looking
the
in the
way you
first,
shoot
because it's
first.
almost country by country and that as well,
Yeah.
or region. So it's you just don't go overseas with this idea. But I think what I do go overseas with, people are not
Yeah.
zoo exhibits. People deserve respect, and you try to work within that. And like here, of course, anyone has the right at any moment to remove the right for me to take a photo. And as soon as they
Okay.
remove that right, I respect that. If they
Okay.
ask no photo and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
In Sri Lanka, I had a few. I never had this before, but I had a few people, men and that, were going,
Yeah.
I could take the photo, but no Instagram, they say, no Instagram.
Oh,
So
that's
they
interesting.
didn't want a photo, but they didn't want me to post it on social media. So
Social
those
media.
photos that I've
Yeah.
got of these people, I've never posted on any social media.
Yeah.
Not that I'd ever be able to work out if I did or didn't, but it doesn't matter. I told them I wouldn't do it.
Ethically. Yeah. It's good.
And you don't do it then, because I've made that with them, and I feel that it's
Yes.
important to
It's a
respect that.
compact. Yeah.
Yeah, you've made that contract in that with them, and they've given you the right to shoot, but removed the right to do this, and I respect that, because again, we're all human.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I am no better than them because I come. It's also a challenge, like in Bangladesh, which is a very poor country. The
Yes.
colour of the skin gets you access, and
Yes.
I am rich in comparison to them. I'm working
Yes.
middle class here, but I'm rich. So they push you up at a pedestal, and you've got to step down off that pedestal.
Right.
And doing that, I just sit down, just have a milk tea with the men. Play cricket
Yeah.
or play soccer with the
That's
boys.
nice. Yeah.
In
You must
Uzbekistan, play badminton with the
attract.
girls.
You must
Yeah.
have attracted so much attention. Actually, it kind
Oh,
of influences how you can shoot too.
it does. And that's where in Bangladesh, most of the shots you see are around a festival or in workplaces. Because
Yeah.
when I was walking the street, I was surrounded by men the whole time, young men, all grabbing me.
Okay.
I never felt unsafe. I want to stress that. They
Yeah.
just wanted photos. I probably took 1,000 selfies with them. They all wanted selfies and that with us. And,
That's
you
funny.
know, it gets frustrating in one way, but the other way, again, it's about being that respectful tourist. I'm going over there
Yeah.
taking their photos. How can
Yeah.
I say no if they want to take my photo?
No, you can't. Yeah,
You
exactly.
can't, you
But it
know.
just takes away that stealth aspect of being a street photographer. You are so noticeable, as
It
the
is, and
white
it
man
stands
there.
out.
Yeah.
But that didn't frustrate me at the end of the day. It is what it is. You work with what you got, and you're
Of,
traveling over
of
there.
course.
And again, I'm not a professional photographer, so those connections that you get in that out of it are good. And in workplaces, that's why I was able to get photos, because people are still
Sure.
noticing you, but they're
Yeah.
working. And,
Yes.
the thing is, as the photographer in the workplace, I'd always spend, like I said, those first 10 minutes, not only just looking at a scene, but seeing the rhythm of a scene, because it
Uh-huh.
was very important for their safety and my safety that I didn't step where I shouldn't step
Yeah. Of
and
course.
cause an incident.
Mm.
Because these workplaces were quite dangerous as well.
Yeah, I suppose the legislation's a little different.
It
So,
is a
from the
little
point
different.
of
If
view of
someone's
safety.
carrying 12 bricks on their head and I get in their way and I cause them to trip and fall,
Yeah.
They could hurt themselves. Those bricks could fall on them. They could fall on me. So you do have to see that rhythm of the place, look at how they move, see how they move, and work within that for everybody's safety.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny talking safety in places which are inherently unsafe.
The irony. Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm a safety officer in part of my job as well, as part of the irony of that there.
Exactly. Now, we're going to wrap up in a few minutes, but
Sure.
are you exhibiting anywhere? Are you giving workshops anywhere, Adrian?
No, I've done some been part of group exhibitions
Okay.
in Australia and in some countries in Europe and Asia and that in the past. The only solo exhibition I've done is I did a project during COVID. I got awarded a project from our local council, and I put together an audio-visual show of looking at the Melbourne COVID experience from a street photography point of view. Okay. And that was projected on a building in Melbourne for 3 months every night.
Very cool.
So that was really cool on that for us. So that's the only solo exhibition I've had. Again, workshops, again, not per se. There's once a year, there's this thing called the Bright Festival of Photography here in Victoria, where I live, and I run some workshops in that. I am friends with one of the directors of that, and so I do that up there, and I enjoy that, but that's the only time. For me, the photography's for me. I've got a job, so the job stress is, not stress, it's a stressful job at times.
Yeah.
So photography is my de-stressing. Photography's for me, and I like to leave it at that. As soon as I take your money, I've got to meet your expectations, and that adds to that. I don't need that.
We're going to have to close here so that we are able to save the live otherwise. So to find you, you are on Instagram under
Adtamo, ADTAMO, which is just the first letters of my name, my daughter's name, and my wife's name. So,
lovely. Adrian, I want to thank you so much. I want to thank you so much for joining us on Street Macadam. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and we'll be watching your work evolve and develop.
Yes, thank you, Cindy, and thank you, Street Macadam, for the opportunity to talk, and thank you, everybody who listens in now or on the replay.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Nice. Cheers.
Cheers.